Hey, I'm coming in with a video that I'm not to the fullest comfortable making, but I have on many occasions been feeling prompted to do this video, and I have been putting it off for quite some time. I'm coming in looking pretty homely, no makeup, and my hair is not done, but I do have my favorite hat on. So I am going to discuss in this video the quite a bit more in details to what I had experienced when I went through a major traumatic event in my life in 2021. Many people I have publicly announced, initially, soon after the incident, my car accident and other factors that were involved in that. And then at the beginning of this year, I did reveal that I survived a gunshot wound to my head. I haven't discussed it publicly for a number of reasons. I'm like hiding my face too. Because not only is it still and probably always going to be highly traumatic for me to recap, but from the bits and pieces that I have shared, I have been having other people that are, outside of my inner circle, my family, my friends, filling in the gaps that I've left, and not always getting the actual context accurate and how things had went down. And I just want to set the record straight. I don't plan on going into the spiritual side of what I was dealing with, and I am going to try to stay to the physical aspects, what has been reported to law enforcement and therapists and such. So I'm going to leave out a lot of my internal dialogue and the conflicts that was going to my mind, and I might it might be required that I do explain quite a bit that was going on in my mental state. And honestly, I'm not even sure if I'm going to share this or not, but I do want to at least lay this groundwork and give just a rundown of what I encountered and why I decided to choose to make some of the decisions that I did. And but yeah, and I was going to take notes because it is so much, and even though I'm going to leave out so much, it still might run for a long time. So, and I'm going to try not to have to do any edits and anything in that way, but I don't know how it's going to turn out. And honestly, it's something I'm still going to need to pray about before I release it. If I release it publicly. But yeah, I was going to take, and I started quite a few notes to try to keep me in line, but just so I don't forget anything. But it occurred to me, if I do leave something out, it maybe is supposed to be left out. Much of what I went through has been shared with family, friends, close people, and there's still some that some details I haven't shared with, other people, certain people, and then there's even quite a few details that I've kept to myself, kept it between me and God. So, but for the most part of it, and keeping to my transparent nature, I have shared the majority of what I went through. So instead of following along with notes, I just decided to just let it flow and let it go where it is intended to go, and hopefully it reaches who needs to hear it. And maybe in a way so I need to just get it out too, so, which I have. But I do have some concerns about oversharing, and that's why I still need to pray about it. But I'm sorry, it's like 7 minutes in and I'm still haven't cut to the chase. So here we go. I am in my garage, so I'm partially outside, and I do figure if this goes uninterrupted, then that will be a sign for me to maybe share it. And a lot of it will be repeated. A lot of it has been shared already. And I apologize if my bill keeps getting in the way, but honestly, it's my lucky hat. Not even lucky hat. It's just my favorite hat, and my hair is a mess, and I'm wearing it in this video. So the hardest part is to decide where to begin. I've been pretty vocal on my public platforms, Facebook mainly, regarding my daily struggles, battles, love life, personal business interactions. I've interacted with many people that I don't know personally. I've been very open, and in that way, it has been a blessing, but it also has its curses. By the beginning of August 2021, I was in a kind of like an awakening phase of my life. I feel like I've been through many. I feel like we all go through many of them throughout our life. And I was actually in fairly good spirits, and I was making the effort to heal and strengthen my mind, body, and soul. I chose to begin intermittent fasting previous to that, but around that time, I had felt the need to increase my fasting, so much so that I began going extended periods of times without eating, and it became so sorry, so stop and go. It's a lot. It's like I got full. It became so increased that I actually lost my hunger. And at that time, I was going through struggles and conflicts with people in my life. So I did look to fuel my spiritual strength with fasting in a way, and meditation and prayer and dancing and connecting with the earth. So I soon found myself going overboard, and this was still fairly close to, COVID restrictions. I still do work from home, but I was working from home. I really wasn't getting much daily human interactions, physical, face-to-face interactions. So I started fasting for health and spiritual reasons. It got extended, and there's still a lot that I'm still not clear on. And the only way I could even recall timelines was pretty much from my camera roll and based off of pictures I took, and then even screenshots of other things in my Facebook. So because my fasting became pretty extended, I did lose the urge to eat. I wasn't hungry anymore. And I unintentionally didn't eat for multiple days. And by the time I realized I wasn't eating, it hit me. I was like, I haven't ate for a while. Kind of one of the signs that told me was the fruit in my fruit basket was starting to go bad. And usually the apples in there can last quite a while. And I was like, how long has it been since I ate? And it kind of shocked me, and it kind of startled me because I was in such a haze that I wasn't taking care of that basic necessity. And I felt fine. I was actually very energetic and positive, and I felt connected. But when I realized I hadn't ate, it got fairly scary. I went as far as setting a reminder on my phone. A daily reminder that would go off to tell me to eat. I ate. I started eating the apples that were going bad in my kitchen. And I was so freaked out that I remember even just biting through the label on it. And at that point, I wasn't aware, but my mental state was already fairly compromised. I also wasn't sure on how much I had been drinking water, and I started drinking intensely and drinking water intensely, and I was just scared that I had hurt myself unintentionally. Looking back, I should have went to the emergency room at that point, but instead I went to my chiropractor. And I don't remember which date that was exactly. I felt very close to my chiropractor. I had been working with him on more than just my alignments, and I did trust him. And I went there disheveled, no appointment, and I asked the receptionist if I could see him. And he finished up with his patient, and then he got me in there. He asked me what was going on. He did an adjustment on me. I told him, I don't really remember what I told him, but I did explain to him that I hadn't been eating, and I told him I had a few apples, and he's like, you need more than that. And he, I don't think knew how bad it was. And I left from there, but before I left from there, he did give me a hug, and kind of sent me on my way. So like I said, I don't really remember the date of that, but at that point I was really losing touch with reality. And some more time went by. I don't know how long. I still wasn't eating. And my reminders were set. I was in another place in my mind. And I still wasn't eating. I do believe I was drinking because I did have like an insatiable thirst. More time went by. I was still pretty secluded. I wasn't visiting my neighbors because they had been exposed to COVID after they were on vacation. So there's a chunk of time where I didn't even, they weren't even able to put eyes on me. So I was alone. It began to get to a point where I wasn't sleeping. And there were many racing thoughts. And at this point, I didn't realize that I was in full-blown psychosis from lack of nutrients. I didn't know it at the time, but my potassium had plummeted, and I needed medical attention ASAP. I started having physical symptoms outside of the psychosis and such. My heart was often palpitating, numbness, tingling. They were starting to increase. I did feel like I was in a constant haze. I feel like I heard a constant vibration. And this part is kind of hard to leave out what I was thinking and what was going through my mind. And I am going to have to leave out a lot because it was a lot. My thoughts were racing. I started to get scared. I started to post publicly very confusing messages, not just to the readers, but even to me. At one point, I thought I was dead already. It's a lot. So, as it got closer to August 28th, when everything came to a head, a few days before, I felt threatened. I was scared. I started thinking there were evil people sent to harm me. I started drawing all kinds of conclusions. And I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I did feel threatened. I did have an incident where I called the police. I did stay the night at a hotel because I didn't want to stay home. I needed help. I needed physical and mental medical attention. Sorry, there's a huge fly that just landed. I didn't realize it. And even when I finally did get advised to go to the hospital, I was already too far gone. I didn't trust the hospital. I didn't trust anybody. And so I felt like when I did feel like it was go time, my physical symptoms were increasing. I was highly agitated on the inside, and it felt like the vibrations were getting more intense, and the tingling, the cramping, which they were, because those are symptoms of low potassium, which can be deadly in itself. So it was a Friday night. I don't know the date exactly. It must have been the 27th. And of August 2021. And I'm going off of memory, so I don't know. It's draining. So I called my dad, and I'm not going to get too deep into my interactions with him, but my mom at the time was very ill, fighting cancer. Recently received a treatment and was very weak. And my dad knew that something was up with me and thought it'd be best if I come visit my mom. And I did, and I wasn't, at that point, I wasn't fully trusting of even my family. But when I thought back on it, I was telling myself, my dad is the one I can trust the most. So, in my confusion and delusional state of mind, I thought, and this is after I had posted some very stupid remarks. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was scared, angry, defensive, confused, wrongly accusing people. And I had thought that I was about to face the consequences for those mistakes. And so when my dad expressed to me that it would be good for me to see my mom, that it may be, the last time I get to see her. In my state of mind, I took that as that I was close to death, which in all real reality, I actually was. But he didn't know that. He was speaking on my mother. May not be here much longer. So I took that as I was given time to say my final goodbyes. But of course, headstrong me, I remain calm. I wasn't gonna go down without, I don't want to say a fight, but without trying to save my life. The crazy thing is, looking back, I didn't even realize that the biggest thing that I needed to save myself from was myself and the enemy that was in my head. So I took that message from my dad as a warning. And which he didn't intend for it to be, but he didn't know exactly what the extent of was in my situation, my mental state. So, because I felt like it was now go time, I'm sorry, I kind of got to this point and then I went back, but because I felt like it was go time, I had been using my phone a lot, music, to kind of help guide me on what I was supposed to do. I was, previous to this day, doing really random acts out in public, and nothing was so outlandish, though, that it raised any red flags with, police or anything. I'm not going to get into those things, but it was, I was very confused in trying to find what I needed to do to get out of the mess I found myself in. So I felt led to leave my cell phone at home, leave my gray cat in the basement, and pack my black cat and go. At that point, I did not know where to go besides my dad. And the whole way there, I was questioning if that's what I should do. And I went there, and by this time it was getting, I waited till after work at 4:30, and I don't know what time, but it was soon after I had hit the road. And then soon after that, by the time it's a couple hour drive to my dad, I pulled up, and it was nighttime. And I sat with my dad for quite a bit of time with my cat. I stayed calm. I didn't speak to him about that I thought I was in trouble. He didn't speak much on anything in particular regarding it. He did try to feed me. He practically begged me to go to the hospital. He offered to go with me. I declined. I'm not going to get into too much detail about what happened that night with my dad. But I declined. And I spent some time with him. And then from there, I left. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I drove. There's a lot that went into this drive. It was for hours until daylight, early morning, through the early morning into mid-morning. After driving randomly with no GPS, no phone, just me and my cat, pretty sure that I was near the end of my life, and felt like the whole world was coming after me. I felt like I was being chased. And I don't think I'm going to get too much into what I was feeling about that. But ultimately, I did start to go back to my house because I was like, let me go get my phone, let me regroup. Physically, the sensations of vibrations, tinglings were so intense. I could actually hear a hum, a constant hum. I felt I was drinking so much water. I did stop at a gas station a couple times because there was so much driving. The first time I stopped, I bought a lot of water because I had ran out of what I had brought with me. So I was drinking a lot of water, trying to figure out what I was going to do, driving when it stopped because I was scared. And I only pulled over a couple times to pee. And the sensations of that in itself was so intense. So driving for hours, freaked out. Pretty sure, even talking to my cat, telling him, well, this is it, Abel. So this is how we're going to die. And then it did come into mind where I was like, I even had spoken with one of the gas stations, pumps. I had a conversation with a man that he probably thought was pretty crazy, but I'm not going to get into details about that. But I ultimately thought he was sent to hurt me. He was a biker. And I had my gun with me. And I didn't pull it out or anything, but I was on guard. And I spoke with him, and I'm not going to get into what our conversation was. But I had accused him of coming to get me. And he was like, no. We do good things for good people. And then I went away from them. I was so scared and so confused. I should have known. Eventually it was going to get to me, but I spoke through that. I tried to go back home after it was daylight. And hours of driving. As soon as I got into town, I stopped at a gas station. And in my full-blown psychosis, I felt like people were looking at me in a way that they wanted to capture me. So instead of leaving the gas station and going home, I left the gas station and went back on the highway. I don't know how fast I was driving. I didn't have any near accidents. It was very smooth. Nobody really got in my way. I felt like there were no cops around, and in that mindset, I felt like there was no cops to help me and to go to. And in my psychosis, I thought that the cops were aware that I was being chased and were not around, so they couldn't stop it. The thoughts, there's so many thoughts. The mind is a crazy place. So I was running from what I thought was everybody. Everybody was a possible threat to me at that moment. And get off the highway and go on to small roads, frontage roads, country roads, like I had been even previously before I went back home. But at this point, it was heightened. The heat was on in my mind. I took an exit. I found a country road that turned off onto a freshly laid gravel road. I didn't know where it went. I don't believe I was going at an extremely high rate of speed. Maybe like 40, I don't know. And in my mind, I was going to park, find somewhere secluded and park to try to regather my thoughts again, get some water, some resources. And that's when my car, I had put off a recall notice that I had received, and it's one of those things that I was paranoid about handling, because even before I had went on the run, I had an appointment to get the recall fixed, and I canceled it because I didn't trust the mechanics. So, and the recall was for a part that if it broke, you would lose control. You could lose control of your steering capabilities. And I don't know, but I think going fast enough down that freshly gravel road kicked up enough rocks in my undercarriage that that part actually, I think, did break. Because when I finally went to slow down even more, I was faced with going straight over a bridge or turning left before the creek. And I kind of hesitated, and I decided at the last minute that I would turn left in front of the creek instead of crossing the bridge, because I could see ahead. It was a little ways down the road still, a dead end to a house, a country house. I slammed on my brakes. I slid, and I tried to turn left. And my car did somewhat go a little left. It went left enough that I missed the bridge, and I did not fully turn, so I went into the creek. Okay. I'm sorry, this part's hard because this is when it got real. Regardless of what was going on in my mind, this is when it got really scary. I knew I was going into the water. I did not know how deep it was. Thankfully, it wasn't extremely deep. It went up to midway up my car. I did have my seatbelt on. I knew I was going to hit the wall of the creek, the bank, because because it wasn't very wide. Pretty much my car fit into it. Bumper to bumper was the width of the creek. And as I was coming into it, I prepared physically. I turned my body to the side, came into the airbag with my arm. I did end up with, I can't get it on, it's on the inside of my arm. Some scars. I don't know if it's there or shown or not, but anyways, doesn't matter. So I came in to the airbag mainly with my arm and my side. My face did not hit anything. My seatbelt absorbed most of the impact. And I failed to keep my cat safe and restrained. He was loose. Moments before that, I did release him from his carrier because he was so angry. And I remember even right after I released him from his carrier, I was like, this is a bad idea. Dad always told me not to have anything that could get under your brake. Anyways, he did make an impact with the windshield. And I know that only because he left a crack in it. No, it was more than a crack. So, but we all know cats are resilient. He was able to get into the back window where there was no water able to reach. He went back there. I had water up to my middle console. It's a long video. I'm sorry. I had my gun, bullets, backpack, purse up front with me. I got what I could and thought I needed. I got out of the car. Couldn't shut it off because the key had broken in the ignition, and that doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm gonna leave out quite a bit from what I did in this instance too. It doesn't matter. I got out of the car. Kept getting stuck in the mud. I tried to get into the back seat. I was able to get into the back seat. There was water up to the doors. I tried to get into my trunk from the inside and outside. It was too difficult with the water. With the outside, it wasn't allowing me to even open it. I had survival gear, water, all kinds of things in there. I tried to get Abel out of the back window, my black cat. He was alive. He was traumatized. He was salivating and panting so hard. I was scared to even, if I could grab him, which was still difficult because of the water and the angle of the car. Even if I could grab him, I was scared to. Because I didn't know if he'd attack me or freak out even more. Because I would have had to pull him out through water. So in my quick judgment at that moment, I decided to leave him. I left him in the back window. I didn't know what I was going to do in that moment. I got out of the car. With my things. I sat on the, crawled out of the water, kept getting stuck in mud, and sat on the bank for a little while. Still delusional about being followed. I thought somebody would come to harm me. So I took a little pile of bullets, laid them on the ground, and I shot 2 rounds into the air to make sure my gun was working. And I, from there, reloaded the cartridge, the clip, whatever, with the bullets. I wanted to make sure I had as many bullets in the gun that I could hold. And I sat there, stripping some clothes off, preparing for whatever I needed to. Staying with my car and my cat. And I was just gonna go from there. Physically, I was fairly injured from the impact of the car accident. My arm was bleeding from the airbag. I wasn't sure what was going on with my lungs. Looking back now, I didn't realize it then that I must have inhaled quite a bit of airbag dust, because I had a taste in my chest, my lungs, and I could taste it, and I didn't know if it was blood or I wasn't sure if my lungs were punctured. Yeah. the seatbelt, to take most of the impact. And I was bruised. I didn't know it at that time, but I was bruised pretty bad. And my whole body hurt. My back. But I kept going. So I don't know how long. I don't think it was much time had passed before I saw a truck coming. It was an older gentleman. He pulled over. He saw me there with my car stuck in the water. And he said, "Do you need some help?" And I said, "No." He said, "Do you want me to call the cops?" And I said, "Please don't call the cops." I did say I'm not going to say everything that I spoke with, but still in mid-psychosis. It was clear to him that he had thought I was under the influence. And that's what the police had thought from my conversation with him. But I basically said, I don't trust the police. I feel like you will be in harm's way as well. At that point, even before him, I didn't want to have interactions with anybody. I felt like I had brought hell down upon myself, and that anybody that helped me would bring it on them. I asked that he go away, and he did, and I knew he was going to come back. And a little bit of time did pass, and while he was gone, I was gearing up to leave. I didn't know where I was going, but I was going to run away on foot at that point. In a way, I was relieved, and looking back, the accident actually saved my life. It alerted authorities. And got my cat out of that car. But anyways, I left my car and my cat, and I saw him starting to come back down the road. And he had somebody with him. And by then, I had made my way a little ways away from my car. I don't know. It was a matter of feet. I mean, hundreds of feet, but still, I could see my car. I was able to still speak to him. I did have my gun in hand. I did not have it aimed at anybody, but I did keep it as an extension of my body at that point. I would not put it away. I don't even know if he saw it. I don't think he felt threatened by it. And there was a piece of mechanical equipment, and I sat by that and waited to see what was going on. And then when I saw he was getting out and starting to do things, I started backing up towards what I saw was I don't know how large it was. It was a ravine, some woods. And all I knew is I just didn't want to be around anybody. I was scared of everybody. So I started to back up towards the woods. He said, "Hey, where are you going?" And I apologized. And I said, "Sorry, I have to go." And as I was starting to go into the woods, he was distracted with my car, and a tow truck pulled up. And they started pulling it out, and I wasn't paying attention to it, but I could hear what was going on. And I got into the woods, and I didn't go super far into it. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I went into those woods, and I found a trench. A long trench to jump into. And I jumped in it. And I knew police were going to come looking for me eventually. And I sat in there, and I didn't know what I would do when I was confronted with anybody. I just knew I just wanted to be alone. And it was extremely hot that day too. And honestly, I didn't even feel the heat. I mean, I was so close to death that I was actually probably cool. Temperature-wise, cool. I jumped. I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. I'm gonna keep going. I want to get this done. I jumped into that trench. I proceeded to cover myself with mud. I stayed as still as possible as not to be detected. It wasn't long before I heard the police on a megaphone asking me to come out, saying they just wanted to provide me medical attention and water. There was no threat from them at that. I mean, I was threatened at that moment, but they were very gentle with me. I eventually did hear the dogs. They had come to find out later they did not release the dogs because I had not been a criminal threat. And they didn't want to scare me more or cause more harm. There's so many details. As more time went on, I heard a drone. I saw the drone, and I'm still in my position in the trench, and I was trying to stay under as much coverage as I could. And I just sat there with my backpack to the side of me, my gun in my hand, hunkered down, trying not to cough because I had rattling in my chest and just pain. I just tried to stay as quiet as possible. I saw the drone. The drone did not see me. The drone went away. Not long after that, I saw a man. There was a couple people, I believe, on foot looking for me at that point. Only saw one, though. He was not far from me. He was within view. He would have seen me if he would have looked down. I was so scared for him to see me because I did not know what I would do. I mean, I didn't feel like I was going to harm him or anything, but I just, the only thing that that came to mind, I would have begged for him to be quiet and leave me alone, which I know that it wouldn't have went like that. He went away. He didn't see me. And then it got quiet. Eventually, I heard the tow truck leave. And I stopped hearing people. They stopped on the megaphone. The dogs went away. It started to get dark. And I, still not knowing what my next move was going to be, I said, I'm going to wait for it to get dark. Then I'm going to try to move out of the woods and go to the highway, because I could hear the highway. It got dark, and I tried to start to make a move. I didn't take into account how dark it would get out in the country, in the woods, and how hard it would be to see. And I did make some movement throughout the trench, but I could not even find the way out of the trench. I got deeper into some sort of rash-causing poison plant. Immediately on contact, it was burning and itching. My other scar I have is from the plants in the woods. I rolled around in the mud and crawled around through the branches and thorns. Everything hurt, and I was so weak. It was so hard. I kept getting stuck in the mud. Turns out that trench I found myself in, put myself in, was it fills up with water, and it was a little bit of a ravine. Sorry, my chairs make so much noise. And that's why there was so much mud. So, it's dark. I'm hearing animals. I'm still having delusional thoughts. I'm thinking my cat is out there with me. I hear coyotes howling. I am literally laying in the mud, in the woods. I had already by then ripped my leggings from the front to the back, and I had already urinated myself a couple times. And at that point, it didn't even matter. My whole junk was ripped out of my pants, so I pretty much just I laugh and I joke now because it's like a good thing I wasn't eating, because I didn't have to take a crap in the woods. That's a bad joke, but anyways. So I'm just laying there. I'm looking up at the sky, and it was so clear. I could see Elon Musk's satellite train. I could see the stars. It was so serene. And I wasn't sure if I was already dead or alive, and I thought I was in limbo. And it was cold. It was so cold. So cold that the last attempt to locate me had failed. They used a thermal seeking plane, and as soon as I heard the plane, I knew it was that, and I knew they were looking for me. And I tried to lay as flat as I could so I could absorb as much coldness from the mud, and stayed still. Every time it flew over a few times, and then eventually that went away too. And I have no idea what time it was at this point, but all I remember is it felt like time was not moving, and I was so weak, and I tried to maneuver again. I got deeper in the mud, and then I did finally get back to where I originally jumped in and hid in the trench. And it took so much energy and just strength and to get there that I had almost felt very defeated. I did. I felt very defeated. And then I thought, I'll just sit here a little longer. I was so cold and tired and just defeated, and the thoughts that were going through my mind were heartbreaking. I thought I messed up so bad and brought hell down upon my whole entire family and everybody I love. I thought that even if it was true that I was being hunted, that if I was captured, the things that they would do to me would be so horrific that I would not want to be alive to face it. There were so many thoughts that were going through my mind at this moment. I was so confused. And I was so tired and cold, and I just wanted out of it. I didn't want any more harm to come from it. I didn't want to hurt anybody on accident because I was scared of them, and I didn't want anybody to get hurt because of my mistakes, and I just wanted it to stop. And then in that moment, I had determined that it would be better for everybody if I ended it. I prayed. I apologized to God. I asked for his forgiveness. And then I turned the gun on myself. I didn't leave a note. I didn't know where to place it. I put it in my mouth. I put it on the side of my head. I put it on the front of it. Then I decided I want the visible damage to be as minimal as possible. And I settled on putting the gun to the side of my head and pulling the trigger. I did not know how much damage was done. All I know is I instantly felt the impact. It wasn't exactly painful. It made me instantly dizzy. I felt numbness on the left side of my face and my left hand. The shot entered the right side. And I dropped the gun away from me. It flew from my hand away from me. I figured I was still alive. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again. I did fumble and feel for my gun. I did get my gun back in my hand. And I told myself that if I'm meant to die, I'm going to just bleed out. So I sat there. I don't know how much longer. It was still dark. Waiting to die. It was so cold, and at this point, I was like, F it. I didn't care if I was found. I didn't know what. It was just like, I didn't care anymore. I started to try to, I had my purse in my backpack. I started to try to find stuff to burn because I was so cold. I had a deck of playing cards. I tried to burn them. They wouldn't because they had like a waxy coating on them. I just couldn't get them to burn. I couldn't get anything to burn. I tried to burn tampons. I tried to burn anything I had. I was so cold. And I couldn't get that to happen. And I just sat there in the cold, dark. I didn't want to touch my wound. I didn't know how far the damage was done. I didn't know if it was in my brain. I didn't know anything. I only knew that it was definitely injured. And I knew from the pain and obviously after what I did, but I had, there was blood that dripped down to my chest to where I could see it. And, so I knew that. I thought that I was going to eventually bleed out. After what seemed like an eternity, sorry, time is long on this one. Daylight started to come. This is such a long video. Daylight started to come, and I started to want to fight to live. It wasn't long after the sunrise rose that I could see where I was. I could see how to get out. I thought I heard voices. I started screaming for help. Nobody came. I crawled out of the trench, which was so hard. So much harder getting out of it than in it. I mean, obviously, I'm not a little girl. I have a lot of weight. And it was muddy, and I couldn't get good footing, and I did make it out after while I was getting out. I said my little mantras, I can do anything. I got out of the trench. I headed towards where I thought was the highway, where I could hear the highway. And I started towards that way. There was a hill I had to go up that was covered in soybeans, which I've never been through a soybean field, but I trekked up that hill, and I acquired more injuries from just walking through the soybeans. There's like some sort of like, what's the word? Not ivy, maybe ivy. I don't know, like roots. I don't know. At like ankle length height that I had to snap through. Vines, I guess. Yeah, vines that I had to snap through as I walked through it. I got to the top of that hill. I saw the highway was way too far for me to get to. I paused at the top of that hill for a moment. I jokingly said to myself, this is the hill I'm going to die on. Because every moment, sorry, my chairs. I'm sitting for a while. Every moment, I didn't know when I was going to drop and die. Walked. While I was up on top of the hill, I was able to see more of my surroundings. I could see where my car had crashed and the road that I crashed off of. And I was not extremely far from that. I was closer to that than I was the highway. So I walked back down the soybean hill. And I got to the road that I had crashed off of. And I looked each way. And I said, and at this moment, I didn't know when I was going to, take my last step, my last breath. In my mind, it could have been any second. I looked down to the right, where there was one house, quite a distance, and about the same distance the other way, there was the entrance to that road, so the crossroad. I chose to go to the crossroad because in my mind, if I chose to go to the house, there's a chance that nobody would be there. And in my mind, at least at the crossroad, there's more of a chance of somebody driving by to help me. By the time I walked the ways, I thought I saw Abel on my way away from those grounds, down towards the crossroads. I had my contacts on, but everything was just blurry. I thought I saw Abel nose to nose with a raccoon. And I don't know what tricks my mind was playing on me, but I knew I couldn't go back to the woods because I almost wanted to go get him. You know, it's probably just the enemy playing tricks on me to keep me from going to get help. I don't know. Anyways, I left. I was screaming for him the whole way, though, as I was walking away. I said, Abel, come here. So, anyways, I walked to that crossroad, and at the end of it, there was a gravel pit, a couple mounds of like gravel with a little shelter, like tent over them. I have bugs starting to bite me. It's starting to get dark out. I'm getting near the end of where I'm going to take this because after the aftermath is like, it's another story. So, I make it to the gravel pit. There was like a little shed of an office kind of building, and I started to like try to open the door and put a little bit of force onto the door. And if it would have opened up easily, I would have tried to enter there and find a phone. But I was determined not to cause any damage or harm to anything or anyone besides myself. I did not want to cause any destruction or crime or to others. So I couldn't get in there. And it started like out of nowhere, just raining so hard, like thunderstorm. It was so cold still, but it was warming up because the sun was out. But like the rain was like it was scary almost, because I almost thought it was almost seemed like a little tornadic. And I didn't really have any shelter. But in a way, I also really didn't want shelter. I stayed in the rain for a little bit, where I just let it wash the mud and blood off of me. I just let it run on me. And then I went under the shelter of the little overhang of one of the gravel mounds, and I hung out there. And then eventually a deputy from the sheriff's department pulled up and said, Jenna, we've been looking for you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. And then I told him I had shot myself in the head and I needed medical attention. And he took care of me. He took my belongings, and I handed everything over to him, and I'm not going to get too deep into the details from there. He called up backup, very nice officer, another deputy, And he brought me some water and Gatorade and went with me in the ambulance and sat with me at the hospital until my dad came. And then once at the hospital, it was determined that the bullet did not fracture my skull. They were not able to remove any of the pieces. That's not that they don't remove any of the pieces. And the reason why I was so unwell was my potassium was bottomed out. It was bad. And it was required that before I ate anything, they slowly rose my potassium through IV while on a heart monitor. And it took about an hour, and it was extremely painful for that process to go underway. They did keep me in the hospital a few days, the ER, and I did voluntarily go to a mental health hospital for further treatment. I'm gonna end this here because I actually have to call my neighbor. She's gonna worry about me if I don't call her back. And yeah, that's it. So moral of the story: make sure you get your fruits and vegetables, kids. Don't forget to get your nutrients and eat. Take care of yourself and love yourself.